Okay, we're going to graph some inequalities. Now remember, when we have an answer for an inequality, they're going to be a range of answers, okay? If something is greater than 2, it could be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, up to infinity, right? So it's not just going to be one singular answer, it's going to be a bunch of answers. So we're going to have to answer things a little bit differently, but they all start the same. Let's just pretend this one here, y is less than or equal to 2/3 x plus 1. How would you graph it if it was an equal sign? Well, you'd start at plus 1, you'd find your y-intercept, and you'd do a slope of 2 over 3. Up 2 over 3. Okay, and all you need to make a line is 2 points, so we're going to make a line right there. Now, here's the big thing you need to learn. Remember when we did a graph, and if something had like a less than or equal, or say it said greater than or equal, we would put a dot. Remember that? Okay, and do you remember that if it said greater than or if it said less than, it didn't have the equal, we would put a hole there, right? Well, the way we do that when we draw a line is if it has an equal sign, we just draw a line, just like we normally would. Boom. If it doesn't have the equal sign, we do a dashed line. Okay, that's kind of our version of a hole, and we'll do that on the next one. So let's take a look at this. We have our line. Are we done? Well, no, because now when we did a line, here's what we're going to know. Our answers are either everything on this side of the line or it's everything on this side of the line. Now, the traditional way to teach it is to plug in a point, usually 0, 0. Plug in 0 for x and y, and if it makes a true statement, you shade the side of the 0, 0. If it's a false statement, you shade the side that's not 0, 0. Here's what I like to tell people. This is y is smaller than, right? So when do y's get smaller? Well, all the y's get smaller on the side of the axis that goes down. So because it says y smaller, I know my answer and where I'm going to shade is every answer down to infinity on this side of the line. Okay, if that said y is greater, then I'd want to shade the sign where the y's go up, and I would want to shade on that side. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at this one. Okay, so I'm going to graph that just like it's any normal equation. So I'm going to start at -2 because that's my y-intercept. Of course, if they give you a point slope, you know, you can either rearrange it to y equals mx plus b or just find the line and then we'll deal with the shading later. Okay, but we're going to be down at -2, and I have a graph of -1 over 2, okay? Down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, so on and so forth, okay? And again, a very, very crude map. But there's no equal sign. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to create a very dashed line. What that means is that anything on that line is not the answer, okay? Anything on the other side of the line will. Now, this one says y greater. Where do my y's get bigger? On the side that has the up arrow on the axis. So I'm going to want to shade it in this direction. And then that's what my answer looks like, okay? You can shade it with a pencil. You can do however you want. What I don't like to do is shade parallel to the line because then you can never really tell where the line is. But if you shade it like this, especially when we do systems of equations, it's a little easier to find the shading. So if you just want to kind of do a scribble is fine, but do it perpendicular to the line, and I think you'll find it better. I'm going to be doing a bunch of these on the practice sheet. So why don't you go to the practice sheets and let's give some a try.